And here we are with Brian from B-Pro Auto Imports. And before we get into all the nitty gritty of the JDM cars, what to look out for, just tell us a little bit, Brian, about yourself and B-Pro Auto and how you got into this.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, great to be on the channel. So it's been 14 years now for me. I started B-Pro when I was 19, first year university. I was into cars, into business. And I just started with a few vehicles and decided I wanted to make a go of it, and remained committed, and it just slowly grew over time. And we found ourselves in the broker niche, importing vehicles direct from auction and suppliers in Japan for customers here in Canada. One of the things that I think we do well is being able to get a lot of information on the vehicles for our customers, and not to humble brag, but we do import probably the largest volume of vehicles here in Canada, in the hundreds, and we do get some great perks from our exporters, sometimes discounts for volume, with shipping, exporters, customs brokerage, and stuff like that.
And your prices are pretty on point, I find.
Yeah,
that's why we certainly love working with you guys. But from a price point standpoint, it's you guys are hard to beat, right?
For sure. Yeah, and I think one of the other interesting things is, like, we got into this when all the iconic cars were really cheap. Supras, like, I got into it at a great time. Supras, Skylines, RX-7s, S13s, all the interesting stuff was really cheap, and we were importing Supras for $10K, GTRs for $9K and stuff like that. Yeah. So we grew the brand at that point.
Those were the days.
Those were the days, the glory days. We grew the brand at that point, and we're able to build it up and get a recognized presence and good reputation here in Canada. And we import less of those now, but we kind of built off that, and we import all kinds of things, generic things, family things, farm use things, anything people want from Japan, we've got access to it. So it's a little bit more diverse now, but still going strong 14 years later.
Yeah, and the fact that you guys can ship anywhere is, I think, a big thing too, right? I think a lot of people get nervous about purchasing from an importer, let's say from Canada, because they're worried that, it's got to go to the US, but you guys have all the channels in that sense. Even Ontario, you guys, being where you are, for us, it feels a little daunting, but these cars show up, to my doorstep every time we purchase them, and the process is pretty seamless in that sense.
100%.
Right?
Well, I mean, in Canada, everything ships into the Vancouver port. Even if it's going all the way across to the Maritimes, it ships in through Vancouver. And that drive to, if you're going to pick it up in Vancouver and get to Toronto, you'd have to take a week off work to do that. So having the ability to ship it and get pretty good volume discounts on shipping is very handy. We do deal in the U.S. as well, and there's a pile of ports that you can ship to in the U.S., West Coast, East Coast, Florida, Texas. Even Hawaii, we just sent a R34 GTR to Honolulu recently. So we can ship anywhere. Some people like to pick up at the port. Some people like to just, save the time and get it shipped right to their door, and we offer that as well.
Why don't we ask the question that everybody, always asks, and that's like, what to look out for when buying a JDM car? And, maybe preface that too with, like, there's so many dealers out there. There's people that try to do this stuff privately, and then there's a lot of people that get scammed, right? So,
yeah. Well, there's a laundry list of things to look out for. Well, the dealers are a little bit more trustworthy in Japan compared to what you see here. There's just so many of them. And it's so diverse, you really have to be familiar with the landscape there to know what to look out for. Another thing some people don't realize is that you can still get rusty cars from Japan, and it's helpful to know what to look out for with specific models where you could have rust, and even to have somebody there to check them a little bit beyond the auction sheet. Like on a Skyline, you might want to check the strut towers to make sure they're not rusty. And you need boots on the ground and connections to do that.
Which you guys have.
We do, yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Another thing to look out for is to ensure you don't get something with rolled back kilometers. It's not the most common thing, but you have to know what you're looking for. On the auction sheet, you'll see a little asterisk beside the kilometers if they've been rolled back. And generally, best to avoid those ones, I find.
And do you find that verified sticker truly is like a worthy, I've seen it, the verified sticker that comes with these vehicles, I think. Is it JVEC or whatever it is? JVIC?
Yeah, JVIC. Yeah, Japan
JVIC,
export
yes.
vehicle. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. They have a couple different levels you can pay for. I find it's not 100% perfect. And at that point, you've already bought the vehicle. It's at the port by the time you pay for that. So it doesn't matter at that point. You can't get that you can't get that in auction beforehand. So it's better to look at the sheet and then even look at the cluster too to see if it's an original non-aftermarket cluster.
Yeah.
And I guess in terms of rust too, it probably matters where in Japan the car comes from. Like if it's in a northern climate where maybe I don't know if they salt the roads in Japan at all, but I assume that might come into play as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. You have to be really careful on the northern island of Hokkaido, like stuff from Sapporo, USS Sapporo. When I see a comment about
good beer,
they have good beer. When I see a comment about surface rust there, I worry a little bit, and I 100% have to get it checked a little bit closer. Where you might see that comment on something on the main island, something like around Tokyo, for example, and it's not really a big deal. You still check it, but it might just be the same surface rust you'd see on a vehicle that's a couple years old here. But you have to be very careful on that northern island. They get a ton of snow.
Since Pete is our official car shopper here, if I would be a first-time JDM car shopper, what are some of the more common mistakes someone like I might make when looking to make their first, right-hand drive vehicle purchase?
Yeah, good question. One of them might be, if you're new to it, trying to deal directly with a dealership in Japan. There are shady dealerships there, and if you don't know which ones to look out for, you could get in trouble. You could order a vehicle and they ship something else, or they don't ship it at all. So taking a risk, if it's a one-time, first-time purchase, is a little bit dangerous. And you may not know all the things you have to do. For example, you have to get the undercarriage steam cleaned in Japan at the port right before it ships out. Because if there's any soil on the bottom, it can fail the soil exam, which is basically to make sure that no pathogens or bacteria or organisms come over. And there can be vehicles rejected based on that, so you have to be able to get that done right before it loads, so that no other dirt is going to accumulate on the bottom. So things like that you may not know. It has to be 15 years old exactly. Some people don't realize it has to be to the month. So they'll import something too early, and that becomes a problem for them as well. I will say something I've seen people do is try to purchase something just based on the auction grade itself and no other information. You need some context to that, and that's something that we can provide as well. Sometimes you need a second check. If we're getting something in auction, we get a second check done as well. And I would say we probably... my customers would probably testify. It makes the process take longer, but we probably cancel about half of them on that second check, just because some extra stuff.
Oh wow!
Some extra stuff that wasn't on the auction sheet gets found. Maybe some rust, maybe a mechanical issue or something like that.
Interesting.
The other thing is smoking is pretty popular in Japan, right? So.
Yes, it is.
And a lot of people...
we always joke about that.
A lot of...
We did find a cigarette in the Odyssey.
We did, yeah. Although it doesn't look like it was smoked in. It was an unlit cigarette.
That's right.
That's hilarious. Yeah, a lot of people are sensitive to that, and that's something that you might not see if there's a light smoke smell. Maybe the previous owner smoked occasionally. That's something you may not see on the auction sheet. So being able to have that checked is a super useful thing. One thing I find as well is a lot of people don't know all the costs going into the process. So there's a lot of costs from inland shipping in Japan, Japan customs, port fees, undercarriage cleaning, ocean shipping, marine insurance, Canada customs, GST, duty, air conditioning, tax, port fees. All of these costs, people might not add them up properly or account for all of them. So you might go in a little bit too heavy with your budget for the vehicle and then end up going over budget. We try to guide people on what the all-in cost is going to be. So we have our total cleared customs price, which is everything Canadian dollars all into Vancouver, and then we can back calculate the vehicle price from there, so people don't have to worry about missing some of the costs and going over budget.
So I think another really important question is, I go on JDM websites all the time, import sites, in the US and Canada, and there's a ton of inventory, right, listed on these sites. Mm-hmm. Some of them are already sold, some of them are here, some of them are landing, and they do, like you guys, what I really love is you guys have the option of like me perusing auction sites and be like, hey, I want this one, can you go buy that car for me? And really it feels like a daunting task to know what is here, what isn't, and like what is the best way to pick a car, or in your opinion, like how does that kind of work?
I want my car now, Brian. Is it in stock in Canada? Because I don't want to wait.
You're out of luck.
I want my dream car right now.
You're out of luck, my friend. No, so we're based in Calgary, Alberta. We get a lot of people that ask, like, are all 600 vehicles on your website inventory? Are those in Calgary? Can I come see them? No, they're in Japan. It's a mixture. Those units are a mixture of stuff that we've already bought from auction and we have at the port ready to order, and we'll ship it out once somebody orders it. Some exclusive stock from some of our suppliers over there, and then just a few curated dealer vehicles that we list up as available right now. They have more pictures than the auction vehicles. So you know kind of exactly what you're getting, and you can save a little bit of time because you don't have to hunt from auction that way. So what I usually tell people is, if you see something that you like on that section, good, let's do it. If you don't see something that you like, you want something a little bit different, that's where the auction custom order comes in. So then we can hunt daily from the 100 plus auctions in Japan and send you options daily, and get you info on those and bid on those. So it's like, A, you see something listed on the inventory, great, we'll do that. B, you want something different, let's hunt, kind of thing. Now, one interesting point, if you see something that we have listed somewhere else on a competitor site or something like that, don't be shy to send me the link. We'll beat competitor prices. And if you see something elsewhere, I usually can access that vehicle. We've got access to everything over there. So just don't be shy to reach out and see what we say.
So for us regular folks, Brian, who can't afford our dream JDM cars anymore because GTRs and Supras and in my case NSXs have become so expensive that they're just really not realistic, what is the next sort of phase, do you think, of cars that are going to come in from Japan that are going to make enthusiasts like Peter and I happy but not broke?
You're an NSX guy, so am I. I had a 91 for a while. It's an awesome car. Not particularly fast, but beautiful. I would say now, like, we still do get people that order those. Less as daily drivers, more as collectible kind of vehicles. But I see a lot of people just ordering, well, the Odyssey is a popular one, the van that you guys got.
Yes.
Yeah. What a cool
Or
van.
the Estima is another van that's fairly popular. Toyota Alphard, Toyota Velfire. It's just a good value for a low kilometer regular vehicle compared to what you can get locally. And again, no rust, good condition, well cared for kind of vehicle. So it's a compelling, I think, value proposition compared to the used market here still. We import a lot of, I don't know if you guys have seen those little K trucks, those tiny little 660cc trucks from Japan.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Yeah, we do a lot of those for all kinds of stuff, for hunters, for people with acreages, sometimes bulk units for companies that use them, like oil field companies and stuff like that. So it's all over the place. There's a lot of daily drivers that we're doing now, and there's almost unlimited makes and models of daily drivers that you can import. So it's all over the place. Vans, 4x4 off-road, K trucks, daily drivers. There's once you go in the rabbit hole, there's just a lot of stuff that you can get from Japan.
Now, another common question that we get is how to get parts for these JDM cars. Like, you guys obviously import the vehicles, but can you get things like windshields? That's a common item that people have that concerns about when they, have an Odyssey and you need glass for it, right? Like, who do you turn to at that point?
Yeah, that's a very common question that we get. So for anyone that's imported a car with us, we will get them parts at cost as long as they have the car, just as kind of a favor.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
We can get OEM parts from Japan. We can look it up by the chassis number or the VIN number and get anything OEM. Now, something like a windscreen, especially in Alberta where we get a lot of rock chips from the rocks they put on the road in the winter. It's something people replace fairly often. They're pretty expensive to airship though, and you have to package them up real nice so they don't break.
Yeah.
So we do have some partners that do parts containers, and it might take a few months to get one in, but that's definitely the cheaper way to ship a windscreen over. You can airship it, it's just a little bit pricier. And then, used car parts, aftermarket parts like body kits and exhausts and stuff like that, also pricey to airship. So if people want used parts, again, container shipping through one of our partners, and we have the connections that we can link people up with for that. That's going to be the best bet. So we can get the OEM kind of maintenance wearable parts that you need, no problem. But we can point you in the right direction for some of the other stuff.
So Brian, in terms of cost, what is the average price of a car from Japan these days?
Yeah, so I would say 25% of units that we import are between 8,000 and 9,000.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I'd say about half of them fall under 10,000. But a lot of it just depends on the customer, because if they want something special, the price can go way up from there. But typically people are importing more regular grocery getter vehicles and stuff like that. One that's been really popular lately, actually, one make is Lexus, just because the value is there. The LS 460s, the LS 600 hybrids, the IS Lexuses as well, have been really popular. You can get a lot of those under 10, and that's, again, Canadian dollars to Vancouver, landed and cleared. You just need to pay for the further shipping from Vancouver to your door kind of thing.
Wow, yeah, that's super cheap when you think about it.
And they'd typically be much lower mileage, a lot less rust than like the Canadian equivalent of those cars. So if you can...
they got the cool JDM factor.
They do have the cool JDM factor. You know, there's a lot to like about that price and the condition of the cars that you're bringing in are compared to what we find here. Like, we call it Ontarable for a reason, Brian, and it's because cars die very quickly here. So
Totally.
We need cheap Lexuses. We need more cheap Lexuses. That's the moral of the story.
Totally. And I guess I should say for American customers, I guess the average price would be closer to 6, 7, just because of the exchange rate difference to whatever port.
Yeah, it's huge value proposition.
Yeah, totally.
So for those true cheapskates like Peter and I out there, what is the most affordable? What's the cheapest way to get into a JDM vehicle right now?
Yeah, well, we have some stuff on our site for, as low as 5,000-6,000 Canadian landed. In most cases, the cheapest way is to go with a broker like us and either grab one of those or hire us to get something in auction. In most cases, we have a $1,000 flat fee for our services. And you kind of recoup a lot of that through our volume discounts that we get. So, if someone were to come to us and hire us to find them, I don't know what's a good example, like a Civic from auction in Japan, or a Mark X or a Crown. I just got one for a customer who had a budget of 6, and we got it just a little bit under budget. We probably had to bid on 4 or 5 units before we won a good one under budget. But he was happy. He's going to pick it up in Vancouver, drive it home to Calgary, and everything should be nicely on budget for him.
Amazing. And how long does the process typically take then if I go from like contacting you, picking a car, having it at my doorstep? Like what is the sort of typical turnaround time on that process?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll say over the last decade or so, the average time and what we had on our site for the longest time was 4 to 6 weeks. So interestingly, it's only 2 weeks or about 14 days on the water from say Yokohama, Japan to Vancouver. The bulk of the time is just waiting in queue for the next available Vancouver-bound boat with space. Unfortunately, now it's taking longer. Since COVID, it's been bottlenecked. Like there's been more demand for boat space than supply of roll-on, roll-off boat space. So right now, I would say my forward estimate is probably like 3 to 4 months kind of thing. Again, most of that time is just in queue, lined up in sequence at the port in Japan waiting for a boat. Now, the caveat there is it depends what port it's at in Japan. And sometimes the shipping calls are pretty last minute, so it's a little bit luck of the draw based on what port you happen to be at in Japan. Yokohama, Kawasaki, Kobe, Osaka, and a little bit what exporter you use, because the shipping lines might give, say, 2 or 3 spots to an exporter for Japan to Vancouver shipments. But if that exporter has 20 units to move, they have to pick 2 or 3 of those. Where if it's a smaller exporter and they only have a couple of units to ship out, they might get them all shipped. So one learning that we've taken is to leverage our network a little bit, and instead of putting all of our stuff with one of our sources in Japan, we divide it up among our trusted sources so that there's a greater chance of all of them getting some spots on a boat.
Okay, so what do people that are looking to buy JDM cars need to know about the process of it? Is there anything specific in that sense? Obviously, being available makes sense where, with these auctions, right? Like if you're bidding on a car, somebody does need to be available and say, yes, I want this car right now, right?
Yep. Oh,
Or give you a price cap pre-auction kind of idea, I guess would be the other option.
for sure. Yeah. So being available is a big thing because, again, if someone gets something from the site inventory, it's easy. We don't have to worry about any of this. But if we're being hired to get something from auction, sometimes they pop up pretty last minute. So when we're doing our daily searches, sometimes something pops up that's going to be an auction within a few hours. So when we email or text that option, we need a pretty quick response to indicate if there's interest so that we can get the information and then establish if we're going to be bidding on it before the auction happens. Now, with the time difference, with Japan being ahead of us, people have to be available a little bit in the evenings. So, around supper time kind of thing, just people need to be able to check their phone, email, just to be able to get back to us in time. And
that's all people do at dinner now anyway, Brian. They're just on their phones instead of talking to each other. So it should be no problem.
Unfortunately, yeah, you're right. Another thing to know is in like the digital commerce age, people are used to tracking things that they buy online. It's not quite like that. It's not quite like a FedEx package. We'll always update people anytime there's something and be reachable along the process. But there's quite a bit of waiting at the port in Japan when it's waiting to get on a boat, and that can make people a little bit anxious. So just to know that there's not going to be tracking until it gets assigned to a boat, and then we can use a GPS tracker for the boat for the 2-week journey that it's on the water. But prior to that, it's a whole lot of the waiting game, pretty much.
Being patient.
Yep.
Be patient is key. There you go.
And I suppose the other thing people should know, they can come to us to get ballpark pricing on vehicles to see what could work for their budget, and we'll be honest about what type of vehicle, what condition, what kilometers we can get in budget. There are some statistics on our site, on the auction site, bids.bpro.ca, that people can browse to get a feel for what stuff is going for, and then talk to us. We'll let you know what that translates to in terms of an all-in Canadian price fully imported or U.S. price for our American customers.
How about Type Rs, Brian? I am a big Type R guy. Peter will tolerate a Type R himself. What's the sweet spot in the market right now? Is it like EP3 Type Rs, DC5 Type Rs? Where does a Honda Type R nerd spend his money right now?
Yeah, I mean, like the DC2s and the EK9s are awesome, but they're way overpriced now. I would get an FD2 maybe, an FD2.
FD2,
yeah,
okay.
FD2 you can get for like low to mid 20s. I feel like if you're paying the same amount for a DC5 Type R or an FD2, I would get an FD2.
Here's a random question for you. What's the weirdest JDM car you've ever imported? Is there a weirdest that jumps to mind?
Yeah, like Daihatsu Midget.
Midget.
I don't even know what that looks like.
Can you use that word now? You get canceled for saying that word.
You can. They're just weird. They're wider in the back, narrower in the front. They almost look like a trike. 2 seats in the front, if I remember correctly, and then they have a window that pops up on the side. So they're like a few food truck places
weird.
have ordered those. They're super strange. Yeah, super strange.
Never heard of it.
All right, Brian. Well, we've taken I think enough of your time, so thank you. But before we finish, is there anything else people should really know, or did we miss anything that you think is important for anyone that's looking to have that JDM car experience? Right?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. So we've been getting a lot of people asking when they're browsing the auctions, like, why is there just one blurry photo for the vehicles at the USS auctions? You guys have probably noticed that too.
Yes. Yes.
USS, all the USS auction houses were bought by a big Japanese conglomerate not that long ago, and they're super paranoid about keeping their images in their control. So they blocked API access for all auction portals to see those. So essentially, if a customer sees one that's the specs and kilometers that they want, they just have to let us know, and we have to manually retrieve those photos and send them to them. They used to just be on the auction portal, so they could view them right then and there. But now, it's just an extra step that we have to do. But we can still get those. It's just a bit more work. And the other thing is, just one other reason we'd like at least the chance to chat with people if they're interested in importing is there's been so many across Canada and the U.S., so many import businesses that have popped up over the last decade plus and just disappeared. There's a lot of fly-by-night antics that go on. So it's really important to deal with a licensed importer. We're AMVIC, City of Calgary licensed, and been around for the long haul. But a lot of places take on too much overhead and end up having issues with cash flow and end up closing their doors. Or some people just, I don't know, the stress of the job. I don't find it stressful, but some people do and end up going away. And you want to make sure that you have peace of mind if you're importing something. So you want to go with an importer that's going to be there for the long haul, and we're committed to that for sure.
Cool. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time. I think we've learned a lot,
sure.
and I think the viewers here kind of have a better aspect and sense of what it is to import a vehicle. So yeah, thanks again, man. We certainly appreciate the time.
Pleasure. Yeah, this was a lot of fun.